There you go, ahead. Hey, John, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
All right, we're gonna mute again until we're ready.
Yeah, we're gonna mute and then we go.
It's just absolutely. I'm live.
Then.
No, we So I'm gonna look at a few of those.
I'm interested.
Board meeting, yeah, no, the 6th.
And now I'm asking.
Whatever that.
Well, is it?
Until the minutes are right, like.
That's not
wrong.
But if it comes back that we're not doing.
Hey, I used to be at the old city hall. Like, on the alley there, you know, police parking. What city?
Well, it sits in, yeah, it sits in.
You ready?
Yeah, it's on, it's on.
All right, let's go ahead and get started this evening with the City of Centerton Planning Commission meeting, July 18th, 2023, with a roll call.
Jeff Safar,
I'm here.
Joey Engel,
Here.
Devin Murphy, Rick Langford,
Here.
Jerry Harris, Don Sussums, Ben
Here.
Lewis, Tony Davis, Brendan Swabata.
Here.
That's all right, close enough. We didn't know you're talking about.
All right, let's remember John tonight, whenever we have to take a vote or anything. So he's joined us remotely. First thing, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from June 20th of 2023.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Tony, a second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Next on the agenda is the ratification of the admin approvals. There are two. The first one is a home occupation, office and administrative use for a business, and the home occupation for the Hitch and Go rentals was originally approved. Then there were some discrepancies, and so it was denied. And then they have since agreed to have the equipment offsite until they can get through the possibility of a conditional use. So it's actually up for consideration tonight. Are there any questions or comments about either of the home occupations?
It's not up for consideration tonight. They are going to submit an application. So
The hobby saying, the reinstatement of the hop.
Is that not true?
yes,
Okay.
Just not.
I tried to get my stuff in a row before I was hoping. So yes, it is up for approval this evening, but understand that the equipment must be offsite in order for it to be in effect. If there's no other questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion to approve the ratification of the admin approvals.
It's Craig, I make a motion to approve the approvals.
Second. Motion and second. Is anyone opposed? All right, and under special business, we had requested an update on the ADH approval of projects and Centerton utilities plans. Malcolm's here just to give us a quick update.
Hello, I'm Malcolm Atwood,
Welcome.
the Director of Utility Department. So last year, as part of our comprehensive long-range plan, we submitted along with it a sewer capacity study. It's more for a snapshot kind of overview of our sewer system and identify potential problem locations. Well, AEH kind of took that and ran with it. Since then, they have kind of picked over it fine tooth and comb. We've had a sit down meeting with them in February. I talked some things through. It's like they kind of changed their minds. But a few months ago, we submitted the first submittal for the downtown improvements for their request. Actually, it was 5 locations, but after doing field work, it came down to 4 locations. We submitted our second submittal after their comments in June. And the week before last, we got those comments, which were 3. 2 were based on our downtown improvements. 1 was still in regards to the sewer capacity study. We submitted hopefully our final submittal today. We expect to get approval on that. And once we get the approval for them, projects will be able to continue. They just will not be allowed to connect to our sewage system until these improvements are done. As soon as we get that approval, we'll have the big documents ready, send out an advertisement for proposals and then go from there. And we had a utility commission this morning and they're adamant about getting this done as fast as possible.
Is there an estimate on how long the work will take?
No, there's 4 locations. 2 of the locations should go pretty fast. One will be a little more in depth, but kind of behind our office out there in the trees, it's kind of pretty much bypassing a manhole to put more slope in a section of pipe. That'll take the longest. The other location is kind of near the Main Street and 102 intersection, but it's just pipe bursting, so that should be able to just, as long as we get the company that has the equipment. And then down from that, kind of towards McKissick Creek, right before our main lift station, we're just interconnecting 2 pipes to distribute the flow evenly, but those are the 4 locations. So we've already been collecting capacity fees to pay for it. We don't think we'll have any problem pay for it. If we take a short-term loan out, we're in good financial standing. So it's mainly getting approval from ADH, giving time for the contractors and companies to bid on it and going from there.
What are your capacity fees been? I haven't heard anything about that.
Capacity fees,
Is it just unit per unit?
per pretty much new building, gonna be residential, commercial, and it's based on the meter size that's going in. So we updated them middle of May, and we started collecting them, I think it was around June 8th, June 9th. So I think they about doubled, but there's still a lot less than Bentonville. I know that, so are Rogers, but it was the city council asked about before they approved the sewer capacity fee. That was one of the items.
And so is it limited connection or no connections until those improvements are made in those sub basins? Or is it city-wide?
I think it's citywide, the way the health department, because everything on the south side of 102 goes through one of the pipes. It's gonna be interconnected, but that's it as far as improvements. Everything kind of on the west side of Main Street and to the north, though, all that's running through the 2 of the pipe bursting in the new pipe and 1 section of one of the interconnected pipes. So it's mainly for the north, the ADH, the way they are, I assume they're gonna want all of them done before they allow any new developments to connect. Stuff that's already received approval, they can go ahead, keep constructing and connect. Just stuff that hasn't, they're waiting on that.
And I think that's what brought it to light is last time somebody came up, I forget which project, they're asking for an extension. And they mentioned about the health department stuff and we hadn't heard of anything, so we were just kind of wondering what.
Yeah, well, the locations they're saying we have problems, we don't have any blockages, overflows or surcharges. They're using design numbers.
They're using like storm.
They're using 100 gallons per person per day. What we had Center here, we feel is closer to 60. We need 65 and they told us you can't do that. You use 100. It doesn't accurately reflect real world conditions. We don't have problems there. This was for like long range play at 5, 6, 8 years down the line. We weren't expecting to do that this year, even next year. But they're so adamant about it. We're like, okay, we'll appease you guys. We even went to a contract a couple of months ago with a flow monitoring
I was gonna ask my next question, yeah.
company, and we had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. They say your numbers look great, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing overflowing, no capacity issues. So we're just waiting for them to gather the data, get us a good report, and then present it to the health department, see if they'll ease up a little bit.
They're using track.
Yeah.
That can help you, because that's also in 10 states. If you have flow data, you can use that in lieu of.
We hope that the health department may have other ideas, so about 14 grand a month.
They're not cheap.
Any other questions or comments? Appreciate it, Malcolm. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, under new business, first thing tonight is a track split, 2303. Sullivan, it's dedicating right of way at 8500 Wagner Road. It is zoned RE. Parent tract is 8.06. Track 1 is 3.6, and track 2 is 4.41. The staff is going to cover this.
So this has already been submitted in the past. And originally we did 3 track splits, so with 2 extra track splits. Which will result in a minor subdivision. Now, according to the minor subdivision, right away has to be dedicated. But however, Wagner Road is a local road, not on our master street plan. They can dedicate a variable width right of way between 20.9 feet and 21.6 feet. The road is currently gravel. So tract 4, the frontmost tract will have direct access to Wagner. Tract 5 will use access easement as well as a utility easement to service that tract. Access easement is 30 feet with an additional 15 feet for the utility easement.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners? If there are not, then I would entertain a motion for track split 2303 Sullivan, dedicating the right of way.
So Joey, I'll make a motion to approve track split 2303.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Are you gonna sit down?
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain from this.
Just note for the record that Joey will recuse himself from the next 2. All right, next on the agenda is a public hearing, and this is for rezone 2306 Victoria Peak LLC. The rezone request is from A1 to C3. It is at 974 Main Street. The total tract is 9.83. The proposed C3 is 3.53. And just the applicant here, you want to give us a quick overview?
Certainly. Nate Batchelor from CEI, representing the applicant today. You guys have seen this piece of property once before, twice before, a few times. I came in with some ideas that were at the end of the day not approvable. So back in front of you today, requesting straight zoning for R3. I'm sorry, for the C3 in the front, and the subsequent application you'll see next is for the R2 in fact. I believe those to be consistent with the land use plan as currently adopted, and request your approval.
Thank you. Kayla, do you just want to highlight anything?
Yes, so just a few things to note. This does have a concurrent track split to split that front parcel from the back parcel. I'd like to remind you of the 100-foot utility easement running through it. And there was a rezone that was previously planned by on 6/6, June 6th. So they came back with 2 separate zonings instead of one zoning for both. So this first one is for C3, which is neighborhood commercial. It's along Main Street, a minor arterial boulevard, 90 feet right of way. McKissick Springs Loop, which is a 12-foot trail, is planned along there. I won't go through all of the details all over again, but Hampton Water is available along Main Street, sanitary sewer is available. They were proposing a connection in Terra Knolls. The land use plan calls for lower commercial to serve the northern half of the city. So based on the plan, neighborhood commercial is consistent. It's surrounded by a bunch of R2 subdivisions like Terra Knolls and Lanebridge subdivision, and across the street-ish from Come and Go and near Legacy Sports Academy, which are both C3. So neighborhood commercial is compatible with that. And then I've listed some items that go along with just the C3.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public? And I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Tony, I'm making a motion to open up the public hearing for REZ 23-06.
Second. Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? We are now open to the public. If anyone wishes to speak, have any questions, comments in regards to the rezone for the front piece of this property, as it's shown on there. So this will be the entire length of the front piece to a neighborhood commercial designation. We'd ask that you come to the podium and state any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have. Second call for anyone that wishes to speak. And third and final call. With that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll motion to close the public hearing.
Greg, second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, let's go through the questions that we need to consider. The first one is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan, if not why? And it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and land use plan. Does anybody disagree with that? Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? And as was pointed out, this area has kind of been designated for a long period of time along Main Street and north and a little west there as a commercial area. I think there will be a buffer behind, if you will. And so I think and definitely feel that it's compatible. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and surrounding areas? And again, with the neighborhood commercial designation that's being requested to service those areas, I think that it would be compatible. Does anybody disagree with that? Would the rezoning provide a benefit to this landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? And I do not believe that it will provide a special benefit to this landowner. Does anybody disagree with that? And the last one, if the public is opposed, why? And there were no objections this evening, or we did not receive any communication either, or questions or comments in regards to the rezone. Nate, anything to add? All right. If there's no more questions or comments, I would entertain a motion for the rezone 2306 Victoria Peak LLC from A1 to C3.
Motion to approve rezone 2306 Victoria Peak LLC rezone from A1 to C3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Samantha, if you'll do a roll call vote for me, please.
Brandon Swoboda,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
Greg Langsberg,
Yes.
Don Sessoms,
Yes.
Tony Davis,
Yes.
Jeff Safer.
Yes. Thanks, Nate. All right, next on the agenda is also a public hearing. This is for rezone 2307 Victoria Peak LLC, and this rezone request is from A1 to R2. It is at 974 Main Street, and this is 6.29 acres. This is the back half of as it's shown on the map up there. And Nate, you want to discuss you again?
As you mentioned, the 6.3 acres out of the larger 9-acre tract. And the remainder after the land use plan amendment or commercial neighborhood commercial frontage there. R2 is the request zoning, which is consistent with the surrounding zoning areas and the density called for in the land use plan map.
Kayla, any brief things from staff?
Yes, so before it was asking for RTH multifamily 12, this is R2, which is medium density, which is 3 to 5 units per acre. Our comp plan in this area calls for low medium density, which is 3 to 7s infill to accommodate both attached and detached housing units. So based on that, R2 is consistent with the comprehensive plan. As I stated last time, and for the last report, it's surrounded by R2 subdivisions and C3 commercial developments. So based on that, the request for R2 is compatible. There were some items from last time that we said aligned with the comprehensive plan for the RTH multifamily. That no longer aligned with this rezoning, so like. Item 35, seek to increase density in key areas to reduce the cost of land per unit. That's not consistent anymore. Seeking to allow alternative forms of density. That one's not consistent anymore. So there are a few examples of that as well. But it's overall consistent with our land use plan and the surrounding zoning.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public? If not, then I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Craig, I'll make a motion to open the public hearings for rezone 23-07.
Second.
Motion and a second to open public hearing. Is anyone opposed? We're now open to the public. If anyone wishes to speak, have any questions or comments in regards to rezone 2307 with the rezone request from A1 to R2. We do ask that you come forward. Any questions, comments, concerns that you might have. Second call for anyone that wishes to speak. And third and final call. With that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll motion to close the public hearing.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? Okay. Let's go through the questions that we need to consider. The first one, is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan? If not, why? And I do believe that it is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, land use plan. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments? Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? Again, as was stated, it is surrounded by not only R2, but it's also got a couple of agricultures on each side of it, which today are used for housing. So I do think that it is compatible. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments? Would all the permitted uses in this new zone be compatible in this location in the surrounding areas? And again, with the request for residential, it would be compatible with the surrounding property. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments? Would the rezoning provide a benefit to this landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? I do not believe that it provides a benefit to just this landowner. Does anybody disagree or have any comments? And if the public is opposed, why? And there were no public comments or questions, concerns tonight, or via any electronic communication either. So, no, nothing opposed to the public. Any other questions or comments in regards to the rezone 2307? If there are not, then I would entertain a motion for 2307 Victoria Peak. The rezone request from A1 to R2.
I'll motion to approve rezone 2307 Victoria Peak rezone from A1 to R2.
Motion and a second. Samantha, if you'll do a roll call for me, please.
Brandon Swoboda,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
Kevin Murphy,
Yes.
Greg Langsford,
Yes.
John Systems,
Yes.
Tony Davis,
Yes.
and Jeff Safar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda this evening, actually, let's wait for Joey to get back. All right, next on the agenda this evening is also a public hearing. This is for Title 14, Section 14.04.12, Planned Unit Development Code changes. And does staff want to highlight anything? Or you just want to open up to the public? I know we had the final comments at our last meeting and you guys put those up.
Does this have?
I think it was our highlights, but I remember what we changed.
Okay. Yeah, there's still some. Okay, most we had gone over. There is still some things in red. That's what we had gone over and the definitions. One thing on, we had worked up the example of the increase in density. If they are requesting a higher density than is typically allowed in that zone, what would be the percentage of green space or of the open space requirement? And this was the table that was provided and you all seem to agree with that. So instead of example, I would like to change that to be in a table to make that effective. We reiterated that the planning commission may request open space based on the density and that it should be open space. I added, this is on number 8, page 3, number 8. Open space shall be developed proportionally to each proposed phase of a development. I added unless expressly approved otherwise by the planning commission. I did this because I looked at if you have a PUD and you have a great area that you want to preserve, that it might be good to have a larger area than it be spread out continually around in each phase. So just to give you all the option of being able to do that.
Kind of like the discussion we had on the proposed one last time, right, where we
I can.
moving some stuff around. So, okay.
Okay, then if we go to page 4, we had the number, the double I. About no more than 50% of the common open space requirement can be comprised of the following. So we went through and we're like a retention pond. You can take 50% of that pond. And it is limited in that 50%. So as you, in addition, and we had gone through all of these as far as utility and drainage easements, land with a slope greater than 6:1, areas in the floodplain. So if you look at page 5, we put together an exhibit that shows, and I was gonna say, Nate, hopefully you can see this.
He ran.
Okay. I didn't hear back from them. I asked if we could use their example. So we took this and the chart below, it's gonna be hard to get it all on one page. But we have that, we start with the total acreage of 9.83 acres. We do the 25% required open space. So that's 2.46 acres of open space required with this. And then the 50%. That's can be, you can have up to 50% in these restrictive areas is what we call them. So that's 1.23. So my chart, if you do, I put it as unrestricted. And those are, they comply to open space. But the restricted areas, they can only be accounted for 50%. And then they are limited to that 50%. So you can see restricted, we put the acreage in there, then we took 50% of that, of the restricted area. And we have a total of 0.98, but up above, they can have up to 1.23 acres. So they actually have, you know, they could have put a little bit more in the restrictive area. But as it is, they met their open space requirement. So does that kind of follow what y'all were planning? And then if you look at the exhibit, you can see how it's laid out.
Probably not many more complicated than this one.
Your time.
That's right, yeah. Exactly.
So I think if we can make an overly complicated one and a good example of it, I think that helps and really gives you a good foundation to say, you know, here's a complicated example. Some we've seen are less complicated. And I think it makes sense to,
In this example, where's the regular open space that isn't restricted?
Open space is a dark green.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried to color code,
We did our best.
but we couldn't go too dark green. So like the orange part, that's your restricted areas.
And then that yellow is, because this was the front half is commercial, so I had to make it a different color that wasn't red for
Right.
commercial. It was a great time.
Mhm.
I think it works. What would help me though, just a suggestion, is if you, on your chart here at the bottom,
Yes,
total it as you go across, and then that way you can see how you do the math. So like on the bottom one, you got 0.65, and then you have 0.02 in the restricted, but it only counts for 0.01. So if you had a total on the right side of that, that's at 0.66.
Like this lot counted for this much.
Yeah.
total.
Yeah.
okay. Good suggestion. That will make this chart balance out. It was unbalanced.
I'm glad that will help.
Solve all the issues right there.
I'm glad we got through the 50% of the 50%, the 25%.
it's still kind of hurting.
Oh, I know that.
You missed that discussion.
Yeah, and I'll do some heavier lines or some double lines or something to kind of separate that restricted 50%.
The other thing is like the green space around the commercial. Is that counted as open space? Okay,
This is just an example, okay?
Yeah.
They could-
well, I know. I'm just worried people are gonna count their like perimeter landscaping and
No.
Well, it's gonna be, we did account around because
The landscape buffer,
the
yes.
buffer. Because it's gonna be very difficult for us to say, that island, nope, that's not open space. So I figure what's up around their building and so forth. You know, if it's little tiny areas, it's gonna be hard to
be-
say it's a point
right.
0.1 acres. I mean, that's about as small as you can get.
Right.
So, cause
I'm just worried everybody's gonna start counting parking island, green space and everything like that, when that's not the
well,
intent.
I think it specifically states on section. It's the first thing in here.
Yeah, it's one of the first things.
Open plains excludes all buildings, accessory structures, yards, streets, drainage ways and detention. Oh, I thought oh, wait a minute, here it is down here.
Yeah, keep going.
It's the first one under restrictions. Open space calculations shall not include rights of way, access drives, detention ponds, parking lot island landscape requirements. Buildings, accessory structures, yards, or other area not open to all. So that should help prevent that.
You said you did get the okay from Nate to use that?
No, I was looking on the emails before I came over.
Oh,
They did not. So if they say no, then we will make a.
Make a new one?
Ground generic.
Yes, we'll make
Make a
it.
new one loosely based on this.
Yeah.
Floodplain too, just because.
Or
Make it a gas line instead of electric.
drawing or something on here.
One other idea is you could probably label this as an easement, so people know that that's an easement.
Okay,
Yeah, I covered up the label on it.
Thinking how it would be from if I never developed in Centerton and I was looking at it for the first.
okay. All right, then to move on, the other item that we discussed quite a bit on page 6. And it was 9C regarding the vertical plane of each facade. And we added visible of each facade visible from public view of a commercial or multifamily residential building shall not be completely flat, but shall be broken vertically in at least one direction, at least in one location by a minimum of 1 foot differential in the vertical plane for each 100 feet of horizontal surface. I don't know about this 100 feet of horizontal surface.
You think that's too much or too little?
98-foot building.
It's being,
It says or a minimum of 1. What are you saying? That seems like a lot.
yes,
I think so too.
and I'm not very sure where we got.
About to ask where the 100 feet.
I don't.
I think we went back and forth a few times.
It may have been an example from somebody else.
Someone in a big city. Do we even really need it?
Well, I think the goal was if you get a 500-foot long building, you don't have something in there, they're only gonna do it one time, right? Is the way that I read it. And that kind of defeats the purpose. So I think the minimum, if you will, so if it was a 500-foot, then they would have to do it 5 times. If it's 100-foot, they're gonna do it once.
Fifty seems a lot. 50 doesn't seem like much. If you think houses can be 50 feet wide.
Yeah,
So even like apartments, it'd be a big apartment, but a lot of.
I mean, yeah, we have buildings that are less than 30 feet wide.
Yeah.
So does that exclude them from any,
No, it says or be.
Minimum 1.
minimum of 1, right?
So I don't think the 100 feet's out of line.
100 or 80, if you really want to drop it, I wouldn't say going much lower than 75 or 80. But 100 is a nice round number.
We can do math here. We're gonna be okay.
Let's not go back to the 50 of the 50.
Oh, of the 50, 25 of the.
Yeah. We did that all today.
Little brain.
Does anybody think the 100 is too long or?
No,
Fine,
I understand the intent of it. I mean,
I think it's easy math. If we
Okay.
stay with 100.
so, check. Okay, and then there was a question on, like, instead of them doing the, jut out, the vertical,
Recess or articulation.
yeah, the articulation with, go ahead and go to those examples. On the next page. Yeah. So like instead of it, the building, instead of it being flat, like in the bottom right. There is no articulation, and I may flip that around, and I may put that at the front.
Yeah.
So show no articulation, and then we'll show the others with articulation. As far as the verticals, jut outs, and then also the difference of what they were called coursing with the different materials.
Mm.
So just like the bank building, they have the wood and the brick. The other ones that, more the, I don't know, big stone
Yeah.
and brick. And that's what we were talking about, and they're still flat, pretty flat, but it still provides a visual separation,
Provides architectural interest.
which is the whole purpose of the articulation.
So do we, I was looking at Bentonville's code because they're pretty strict on this. And going back to the previous one, because we had questions. What they're doing is that vertical articulation elements are required at intervals no less than 20 feet and no more than 50 feet from each other.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then, but they don't specify that it has to be a bump, right? Because ours says at least a foot, is that right?
Mhm.
So. They say features such as bays, columns, mullions, regular repetition of window patterns, a break in the building plane, recessed entries or other architectural features that meet the intent of the article. I think that might,
Like that.
I kind of like that because I think it gives more freedom and flexibility on how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would create something like the three that look nice.
Like the one on the Centerton downtown building right there, that would count. But it doesn't have a 1 foot bump out, so it wouldn't count. I think it opens up for this picture that you showed right here, because technically I don't know that it has a foot bump out. In the
And
plane,
Which one?
Which one are you
Centerton
talking
Bank?
about?
the Centerton,
Oh, yeah, the Centerton Bank, right. That's what we were talking about, the different materials.
right?
it
I mean, it does bump
It
in
does
though
bump
at the
in.
door, so
Yeah.
see, that works.
Okay.
But
Just the fact that especially in a commercial,
I mean, the Ravington would argue their doors in,
Sure.
they do.
but we tell it,
It does
we say it's no articulation.
it could have made it look.
I don't know.
Do y'all agree with that?
I mean, no, I like the concept. I mean,
Okay.
I think that's the intent of it is
Right,
to allow for
different materials or
or look.
design, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Flat building.
Yes.
Okay.
I think if you mandate the 1 foot, then, well, that's good, but then everything's gonna look the same.
Okay, so we're gonna remove the minimum 1 foot. We're going to take what Bentonville has in theirs and use it.
I'm not saying that, I'd say the intent, I would like to use the intent of that to leave it a little more flexible.
But we like the language. How's that?
Yeah, but the language is pretty, you might look at it. Sorry to sidetrack you.
Okay. And we did make the change for the photometric plan for the site lighting on, okay, the site lighting on the PUD, that the photometric plan will be required with the development plans, not with.
I think that's pretty.
And then if we go to page 8. For the parking requirement. We had discussion, we had decided the 2 to 5 plexes, we did the 2 per dwelling unit covered or uncovered. And the multifamily 1.5 per unit. But we did have questions you had asked us to look at for restaurant dine-in and restaurant drive-through with pickup. So we'll start with those two and then the schools, but we'll start with these. Okay, we looked at Springdale and Fayetteville, plus some others, but we felt like these were
In line
the
with
best of
norm.
what we saw.
Mhm.
Rest of the dine-in, 1 per 4 customer occupancy, plus 1 per employee on the largest shift. And then Fayetteville's was 1 per 100 square feet, plus 4 stacking spaces per drive-through. But like another one had 8 stacking.
Well, and as you can see from the Wiener thing,
So,
Wiener Schnitzel, yeah,
Yeah, the
Wiener
Wiener Schnitzel.
Schnitzel,
yeah.
and they've
How's
all,
your traffic been, Brian?
I mean,
Oh, I'm just waiting for those accidents, it's.
Out there handing out cards.
Hold the sign.
Personally, I don't really like the per shift thing because there's. I mean, how do you know how many people they're gonna actually,
Requirements, you're one looking at the 1 per 100 and 4 per stacking is a drive-through kind of thing. The other one's more for a table restaurant. Where 1 per 4 customer, it's based on table counts and bar space.
well, this is in the restaurant dine-in category.
I'm saying they're two different sections, so I mean,
They were two different.
No,
options,
the-
really.
well, they're just 2 different ways of calculating because your occupancy and we used to do a lot of things by occupancy. And then we would have to go through and we'd have to find out, okay, what kind of tables are you have, And the fire department would have to work with us on figuring out what the occupancy is. And they would be like, well, we don't exactly know what the inside of our building's gonna look like yet. So that was the problem with that. If they know what their occupancy is, it's great. But we usually have a footprint that doesn't give us that information.
Was the square footage, like net? The gross?
It was a gross, and we should put that on there actually.
Prefer that one. Over the. Employee count.
Square footage.
I prefer the square footage.
Yeah, I prefer the square footage as well, especially on a new build where they don't know for sure if it's.
Well, that's what kind of what I was gonna ask, because I mean, you know, maybe it's proposed to be a restaurant, and it's a restaurant for 5 years, and then it changes into something else to. Or vice versa.
Right.
Well, 100 square feet, that's high. I mean, that's a lot of parking. That is a lot of parking.
Yeah, I think that is kind of high.
Yeah. Now, the other one with the restaurant drive-through, they said they had, this is like Austin's. Texas, they have one for 275 square feet building area. But then in that one, I think we need to add something, if it's a drive-through.
You need more
we
stacking.
Need that 8Q.
Or we just take out the 1 for customer occupancy and do 1 for 225 square foot plus the AQ per window.
Spaces per service line.
Yeah.
The drive-throughs around here get nuts. Not just Centerton, but
Everywhere.
everywhere.
There, yeah, we do. We have a lot of people driving through. They and that may be part of it, right?
Yeah, I like,
These are busy all across.
I like the combination of stacking and square foot.
Okay. All right, so just to reiterate, the restaurant dine-in, 1 per 100 gross scarce. They're scary feet too.
Scary.
Square feet is 100 good or it's 200? I mean,
I think 100 is awful low. I mean, doesn't that seem like a lot of parking?
if you have a 5,000 square foot building, that means, well, I can't even figure.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of
A
parking.
lot, yeah. Only 50.
Why don't we use the 275 number then?
Well, because.
Well, that's for,
High.
I would say 200 would be the highest you'd want to go.
I can live with 200.
I mean, that follows also with the retail. So if it did ever convert to retail, you've still got that.
The 275 for drive-through is too low, too high, or is it okay?
I mean, the intent of that is not to have people in the restaurant, right?
And those buildings are gonna be smaller by nature anyway.
They're getting smaller too.
So do we take out the if no dining? And just do
Yeah.
restaurant drive-through, 1 per 275 plus 8Q
Yes.
spaces?
1 per 275 won't be enough. Just look at McDonald's, they have 8 spaces and they're always full
We have 8.
on the front and the right side.
Well, the other side, they were
Wouldn't that be,
And the rest is all for stacking for
maybe dine in?
orders and all that.
on the.
On the dine-in side.
Dine in.
They have all
Some
the
group.
spaces on the east
That
side.
would be dine-in with the stacking requirements,
Yeah.
not drive-through. We're talking more like the Domino's.
I think you need to like specify it's like drive-through only, or like pickup only. Because somebody would argue that the McDonald's is a drive-through, but they also have dine-in and then.
But McDonald's does have parking on the east side also.
They have to have more than 8
There's
spaces.
more than 8 spaces for sure.
Some
Only
I bet there's 15
5%.
spaces.
275, you're not gonna have enough.
But it's the gross space of just the restaurant part, right?
All right, so we want to,
Yeah.
But they're saying we don't know our floor plan, so they can't do that either.
Well, it's.
okay.
That's the thing too, if you're not
So-
saying for occupancy.
So
I think you can-
no dining
I don't think you let somebody choose, I'm gonna use this much of my building for dine in and this much for drive through. It's either or, and if you have tables inside, it's a dine in.
Yeah.
You
They
include-
drive-through pickup only, so they won't have tables to sit down and eat. It'll only be walk in, get your food, or go to the drive-through, and get your food.
Yeah, not those, it would also, when you do the gross square.
Okay, so the first one, we're going to do dine-in / drive-through. The second one, we are going to do.
Drive-through.
drive-through
The
pickup.
first you could put with seating, on the second you could put no seating.
But let me ask this again, like, what would you do where Center and Animal Hospital is? It used to be a bank. Drive through. If they were to move and some sort of fast food restaurant moves in there, what would they be required to do then to apply? Nothing.
Because it's based on the building.
Okay, so on the primary use at the initial.
Correct.
Okay,
Which is
okay.
the reason we thought about square footage versus
Mhm.
the occupancy. Because if somebody, like the building at the top of the hill that's empty right now, where they're building the Sherwin-Williams,
Right.
none of those are built out. But one on the end has a drive-through. So if they were gonna build that as a PUD, then we would take one side of the building that's a drive-through into consideration for X number of parking spaces. And then the remainder, we would anticipate either being, to Lorraine's point, if we make retail and we make restaurant the same at 200, then we can use 200 in each of the other
Okay.
spaces. That's what we're trying to do in regards to the PUD.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
No, if something comes in afterwards,
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what I was trying to figure out is if they're going to make it excluded, I mean, which we really can't, because then we're looking at use rather than. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and now we go to the schools. It was different between elementary, high schools and college, and on the middle schools. We probably want to put elementary
Mhm.
there also, but they did not require as many spaces for the school because kids don't drive. So, but, and I did talk with Paul Wallace with Bentonville. They do use, first they kind of go by, or they're architects and engineers, kind of look at this Arkansas Division of Public School Academic Facilities and Transportation. So we put that in here. But just working numbers on what we found, otherwise, it seems to be quite low. And I know that we end up with that problem a lot with our schools, that we don't have parking. I remember attending a lot of, especially when there's events that go on and everyone's having a.
I can guarantee you school's not gonna come through here and do a PUD though.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask, when is the school gonna get PUD?
So we can just remove it.
what if so I'll just defend it. I mean, what if it's a large parcel?
Parking
I
requirement.
mean, that last parcel of land that we saw, it was like 200 acres or something, right?
Which- Okay, wait a minute.
The last parcel,
What's going on?
the parcel that we saw last time, concept wise, it was 200 acres, right?
Yes.
Wasn't it 200 acres? What if I put a private school on 140 acres?
Exactly.
I mean, so they could, not a public school, I get it, but if there's a private school with all these,
And tech,
all the things going on, I mean, so I don't think we want to necessarily discount it. Just because they could put something private or a tech or something,
okay,
especially if there's large parcels, just throwing it out there, I mean.
okay, so.
You know what?
We put this chart in here that you all can look at, but I do feel like it's low. It kind of breaks it out by the building capacity, the teaching stations, and well, it kind of gives you that information. And then it goes into the, how many teachers, how many administration, how many for visitors. And then you have these numbers. So if you have a school that has, let's say elementary, 200 students, you have 23 parking spaces. And we all know how that works.
Without all the other, without teacher or faculty or.
Oh, that's with.
Oh,
Yeah, the staff parking is 19 of those 23. You only have 4 visitors. So I just wanted you to see what we're looking at, and but when we worked out some of these other numbers, they were at least double
Mhm.
as you get into the middle school and so forth.
I think the 1 to 3 on high schools is low.
1 to 3 is low. It was 2.
Yeah.
Because.
I still don't think half the kids ride the bus.
Activities. So we just looked at that going, wow, that's a lot, but
Can we just let?
We
schools
figured you would
propose
know.
ratio when they go 13? Let's start.
these are just proposed
So if it wasn't in a,
recommendation.
if it wasn't in a PUD on schools, what would we do? If it was not in a PUD and it was a
Well,
school,
that's where we've had that,
what would we do?
3.5 seats per assembly area, which codes catch, it's the mess, and we usually just have to rely on their calculations and see if it looks reasonable. And I mean, just like the high school, you know,
Wanna be-
come back and added more parking.
Whether it works or not, wouldn't we want to be consistent?
We do want to be consistent. Yes, that's why. But our parking requirements, and that's where a lot of this came from. Is so outdated that it's not.
For schools? Specific, I'm just talking,
all of
I understand, I'm just on school specific right now.
Harder, it's trying to base it on assembly area.
Well, the assembly area should get you the max.
What if it's just classrooms? Then
None of the
it's
schools have enough parking.
classrooms. So then you look at that.
No, it's crazy.
You would look, I mean, I guess I would take, okay, well, classrooms you assemble. And no, so do you look at that classroom capacity and the number of students?
Oh, you said the lunchroom earlier.
Yeah, well, I was like, okay.
The lunchroom, yeah, large lunchroom compared to another area that's an auditorium.
But it's still the same students there in a lunchroom, so it's really hard to do the assembly area.
A lunchroom was also an auditorium.
I think we just need to be consistent. That's where I would start.
Well, that's why we're trying, I mean, it's. Right now, our zoning code needs worked on. So we're trying to do something in here that makes more sense.
And then we can get it in the rest.
And these are just recommended, so we're a lot more flexible here than we are in the.
I have a question about this for the school. So like you said earlier, a school comes to us and they're a private school or a technology school. What happens down the road if they want to expand or grow? Add more student base, add more faculty? Do they just resubmit and have to add whatever number of parking spots per whatever they add?
For their addition, yes. And sometimes we'll reevaluate and look at the whole thing too. You know, maybe they did have some extra built in on the first phase so that it can be, you know.
So they're not necessarily having to come with a proposal for what they need future expansion at the beginning. They could come up round 2, round 3 and add spaces later based on.
We have had plans where they do have the future phases. Spring Hill was, well, even Gamble Elementary. What came as one phase and then they added on. So.
I think my question on that is this whole assembly thing is, down the road, if they're not necessarily adding space that increases their, I guess, assembly, but it's gonna increase the number of people on the campus. You gotta define assembly differently.
And that's the.
So is it maybe then better to do it by? I guess you can do it by population.
What your worst case scenario is? Is it gonna be a football game? A basketball game? Or otherwise? What I've looked at before, I mean, you do 1 per employee, which is pretty easy to estimate. When you're designing a school. And then again, if you're looking at football, it's easy to based on how much, what you're proposing for bleachers and stadiums. Same with basketball, based on your size, you get so many seats per space. It takes a lot to go through it, but those would be your higher ones. If you're trying to do it based on student capacity, classes vary, anything from what, like
Yeah, I mean,
10 to 32 kids?
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I mean, I'm just thinking of
Have a championship season, so, you know. Season, you probably won't need it.
Yeah, that's the, I mean, based off your.
You need to look at their records and who's coach.
So would we do it like based on student count and faculty count, or if these sending numbers higher, you go with whichever one's higher?
because the parking issue you're saying is your bigger concern is when the large assembly gathers, there's enough parking space. It's like West is a good example. They're adding classrooms, which is gonna add a student population. But I know we're adding parking space, but that was really for the stadium, not necessarily for the additional classroom. Huh,
Kids going to school could use both. Still to account for that,
yeah.
as long as bring some of that parking closer to the stadium.
So then maybe going for the assembly gathering would be on the higher end. That does make sense.
Yeah, if you ever see that parking lot full, as in front of the high school, by both sides of the stadium. When's more likely to be full, just for everyday, regular day, based on number of students and faculty there? Or during a football game?
Yeah, I will tell you, graduation was crazy.
There you go.
And like poor grandparents, they were walking miles to get there. It was crazy. There was not enough parking.
Yeah,
Yeah, but in those situations, that's a one-off though. You don't wanna have.
That's true. I mean, that is true. That was a,
Say one off, but that's a yearly event.
that's true.
A year.
Off a year.
Yeah, one graduate here.
So Lorraine, were you saying that you felt like that assembly number is too high or too low?
no, I'm saying that there may be times that you could use, that you need an assembly calculation, but for a school with classrooms that don't necessarily have an auditorium, just like especially the elementary, you would base it more on the number of faculty and administration and the number, something per student is like that school was originally built for what, 750 students? So how many parking spaces would you need with the parents? You know, but most of the time, it's when there's an event that goes on, parent-teacher conference. You know, and that's why they try to stagger everything so that they can get people in and out. That doesn't, I know Gamble does not have enough parking, never has, never. And it was one of those that they cut down the parking. And it ended up not being a good deal. I know Spring Hill, I remember that one that there for a while, that was awful. They finally added some. Of course, it was after the kids were gone, but, and also the high school, that back lot. But still, there's times that with high schools, I know that was one where, like Joey was saying, there's enough. It seems like at high schools, all the kids start driving and that parking lot's packed. At least this is just my experience, but college, a lot of, it kind of dropped 1 to 4 because a lot of kids are on campus. They walk, they ride bikes, they have public transportation. So that's why that was down. Now, the other thing we looked at is like adding and then 1 per faculty or something. That was also another thing that we had found that kind of helped balance out some of that. And then maybe we do need another section that if there are assembly areas, auditoriums or athletic, stadiums, that be in addition.
Maybe, but sometimes that use is offset at different times, like on the
Yes.
weekend. Here's one that I found. It said, from what I've seen, you don't want to emulate Mesa, Arizona, and it's 1 per every 200 square feet.
Oh, no.
And that's a ton of parking, but this is for kindergarten, nursery schools, daycares, 1 for each employee plus 1 per 10 children. Elementary and junior high schools are 1 per employee plus 1 per 8 students. Senior high schools are 1 space per employee plus 1 space for every 6 students. College is 1 for an employee and 1 for every 3 students.
We're not too far off on some of those.
And I did think it was a little harder on the, say the college, like, on the faculty, because it,
Well, you know, if we had an interconnected trail system, we could probably lower the
yes.
parking requirements a little bit.
Or some transit.
Transit. I'd go for the trail though. over.
5 and 4.
So we were at
That's faculty.
Yeah, just add faculty.
5, 3, 4.
I'll go 1 per 2 for high school. I have 1 per 3 on mine.
I know,
Joey.
but Joey mentioned.
This is 1 for 3, so I mean, it seems like that's,
You did say, yours said 1 for 3?
No, his said 6.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 1 for 6. Colleges were 1 for 3. I think the 6 is
Yeah, I
not
think,
gonna cut it.
I think 3 on,
Colleges will matter.
I think 3 on high school.
Is. If you're a commuter college or a dormitory college. High school one, it's, I mean, not familiar with what the demographics are for how many kids. Ride the bus compared to drive in.
They drive around here.
High
If it's
school.
all of them, then yeah, 1 to 3 won't be enough. If you say 60%, 75% of the kids don't ride the bus. How many kids are carpooling in? You're gonna want 1 for 2.
So I can't remember what our what was our what's our high school population right now? I can't, at West. What is it?
2,300.
How many spaces do they have? You know? How many spaces did they provide? Because they were short, right?
6 students, that's about 380.
6 isn't enough.
385.
I'd like to know what they provided when they built, and then we can do some comparison, I think. Do what?
500.
No, you're not there. Well, are we including the stadium? Or before the stadium?
If we do 1 for every 6 students at 2,300 students, that's 383 spaces. Yeah.
For this, it says for high school for 2,000 students, you would need 610 parking spaces.
Just 3. Roughly.
I think the 6 is, I think the 6
Is what? Is good?
is low.
It's low, yeah.
3 might be,
I think what you have might be close.
it's put plus faculty.
Yes, I think you gotta do them.
Okay, college, tech schools, put plus faculty on those also.
And then maybe we just put a caveat that if there are assembly areas, is there like a number that we calculate?
Yeah.
for, Like,
1 per 3.5 seats.
okay, so
assembly
if that number
areas.
is higher, they use that. I don't know.
For assembly. Well,
You could just say,
calculate it
Greater of
differently.
2.
you could just say that additional parking based on assembly area or stadiums would be assessed at.
We'll just
The
consider-
greater of the 2.
You want me to give you?
Yeah.
So
Please enlighten us.
I was sitting back here making sure I was looking it up to make sure I was telling you right. So on your restaurants, what'd you say?
We're on schools now.
Yeah, oh, you're way late. No,
Give it a chance.
no, going back.
We change it. Very gross.
So how are you figuring?
The whole building.
Right, no. So how I figured out. It would be 15. So if you have
15 square feet per person. That's what you're
Yes.
saying.
Essentially, you take your square footage divided by 15.
Net or gross?
It is net.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes.
That's, yeah. And half of it's gonna be a kitchen.
Yeah, you can have a lot of
Uh,
employees.
Then whenever you go to educational, because your assembly areas, I don't have. I need my computer. 'Cause I gotta jump building code back to the fire code to NFPA. It depends on what's your stair spacing. Are your seats like 18 inches down a step? You know, where your feet are to the next platform? Is it 24 inches? All of that changes in auditorium fixed seating. Classroom, it's 20 per net. And then shop and other vocational areas of 50 net. So if you had 100 square foot. Let's say. This is 1,000 square feet. For a shop classroom, you divide that by 50, and that's how you come up with your.
Good or bad?
Depending on how you're figuring it, 200 on your restaurant is. So let's take.
That's gross though, not net. So.
Right. So, see. Say 5,000. Divided by 15, that's 333 people.
That's a big restaurant if you got 5,000 square feet to seat people, though, right?
If you take 5,000 divided by your 200, you got 25. See, that's how I wasn't exactly understanding how you guys were coming up with.
That was just
Your-
some other cities.
Right. And I had more of a question as to how you guys were, because I was looking at that going, if you're 200 and a 5,000, that's 25. Whereas if you do it by actual, it's 300 or something.
We're looking at vehicles.
Right.
You know, vehicles, not necessarily people.
And gross square footage.
So it's I think it's the combination, which is the reason we also want to add in. Although it's tougher with restaurant, right, faculty or employees or anything like that. Typically, we would ask, number of employees. We don't know if we're looking at a big structure.
Well, I can tell you, they have 500 some parking spots. I mean, if you pull up the aerial map, it's
I
huge.
don't want that.
Diane,
They have a,
Diane just pulled it up. And it looks like with the stadium, it's 1,245.
Parking spaces.
For the stadium, they used one space per 4 stadium seats. Where
Which makes sense.
ICC recommends one
One per.
per 3.5 seats.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a standard that I think that's been in our code for a long time.
And then for,
And then,
go ahead.
and then for the fixed, for the building, they figured 1 per 800 square feet.
Wow.
So the flat out requirement following that information was only required for 916.
They have 1,200.
But they provided 1,245.
With the additional parking or without that?
This is on the plans, it states no future parking or building expansion are included in this table. So that was just their original first submittal for the school.
Well, but they did
It includes the stadium too.
the stadium.
Well, yes, it includes the stadium,
Okay. Because
but not expansion.
typically do it all. in
Packed on.
the Stadium.
On a rivalry game.
Total with what they're adding right now.
Several games, they're pretty cool.
Supposedly, unless they change.
Good. You don't want too much parking.
So our ratio is probably not too far off on that one. Paul, does the restaurant one make more sense if we try to look at? Instead of people, it's more just,
Your occupancy, if your occupancy load is 300 and you only have 25 parking spaces.
You're counting the whole thing and you're not gonna put. Half of that's a kitchen, you're only gonna have a handful.
I just
All
threw
right.
that number out there. That's your seating area. That's what we do. We take the kitchen out and we do your seating area, your kitchen has a separate.
Right, so you're saying the net was 5,000, I'm saying the whole building is 5,000, which is where our difference is.
Right.
So in that, it might be 10,000 and then we would have.
So we're gonna work this out both ways. What's your occupancy on sit down? 50?
Forgot what we said.
It's 200.
15? Oh, 50.
Doing the math, it seems like we're low. Not enough parking spots at a 4-to-1 to meet occupancy.
That's net, so you take out.
Well, I'm doing like the kitchen area, and this would be the.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. You have 3,000 square feet of seating in a 5,000 square foot building. He's saying that we'll have 200 people and we're gonna be providing. What was it? 25 spaces.
No, that was for only,
If you have a 5,000 square foot building.
Okay, that's 167 spaces. That's 167 occupancy.
yes.
And then if it's 1 per 4,
Better way of figuring it.
so that'd be 42. Now, if we do it the other way, 5,000 divided by 200.
25.
is-
It's not the same, Lorraine. Cause the building's gonna be bigger than 5,000 square feet.
Well, I'm just using the example of a 5,000 square foot building.
But a 5,000 square foot building, not every single bit of it would be counted towards the
Be useful
occupancy load.
for
So
the,
there's,
I was just saying, if you do
there's no way to do apples to apples here.
5,000 square foot building with roughly 3,000 square foot of dining. He's saying that's 200 people. With that 5,000 square foot building, it's 25 spaces. So you have 1 car for every 8 people inside.
I mean, if you look, most of your kitchen, your bathrooms would be taken out. You're looking at, let's use for simple math, because we already have the numbers. 5,000 square foot building,
whole building.
probably about less than 1,000 of that is gonna be kitchen, storage, bathroom, everything that you would cut off. So you're still looking at 4,000 divided by.
I think it's like a quarter of the building.
That's safe bet. Yeah. Maybe a little higher. Maybe a little high.
That's why I figured 3,000 and 5,000 is 25 spaces, 200 people.
So if we add plus employee, 1 per employee, would that,
If you do it on,
Well, never mind, I'll give you a.
that's gonna go over. I mean, I think that'll overestimate. I think if you just do like what Alan's saying, let's say it's 5,000 square foot for round numbers. Cut it down to 3,000. Divided by 15, which gives you 200.
but how are we gonna do this for?
And
a
then
building?
now you take, right.
Have the building in order to do this.
Right, I'm trying to help myself understand. I think I'm confusing even myself here.
So
But-
how about this? How about we go back to the 1 per 100 square feet and then we have 50 spaces.
I think that's
And then we
close.
see The occupancy plus the employees that are
Here's-
there.
Here's Austin's. If it's less than 2,500 square feet of building area, this would be
Oh, yeah.
close. It's 1 to 100. If it's over 2,500 square feet, then it's 1 to 75. If no customer service or dining is provided, then it's 1 per every 275 square feet. Drive-in service, 8 queued spaces are required for each service line.
That seems like simple math.
So I think we're pretty close with what we had originally. in here.
So we're gonna go back to 1 per 100 if it's less than 20.
We don't have to use, I don't think we do that. Yeah.
And if they want to do something different, then this is just a recommendation guideline. Anyway, okay. Okay,
Okay.
I think I'm.
Yeah.
No, you helped,
no, that's okay.
Good.
Thanks, Paul.
And in that, there was no accounting for workers or staff.
Not once you do 100.
Right. Just want to make sure we didn't double.
Yeah.
Right, right,
I do like the 8 stacking spaces though. I think that's important.
yes. Okay, so
That can go down. I'm just thinking like, that has a win.
At least for the first month.
This is just a guideline.
If
They
they
can go
don't-
lower, higher based on what they're doing.
See the,
Yes, there's
you had the Whataburger. Two comps again.
not a perfect, you know, be all for everyone.
If it's a coffee kiosk and there is, let's drive it only. Then there's not much need for a lot of parking if it's.
How's that many people are? I mean, security.
Those that are.
They're on Saturday.
shopping, they have a Little sitting area and then,
We did go about that.
okay, so if we go back to the schools. Are we looking at,
I don't think the schools are really that far off.
I think they're
We
good.
did the math.
so are we gonna use 1 per 3.5 seats in assembly for the ICP?
Let's use 4.
Or 1 per 4?
We like maybe that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you saying for fixed seating or for benches?
Don't you have somewhere to be?
Depends on how. We'll figure it out. Okay, and then we'll take out this chart. This was just for you all to be able to see this, not to keep in. Right. Okay, we went through the combination of uses before.
Is there a way to get a better screenshot in there?
um,
What's right underneath the parking?
that's being taken out, being removed.
Even better.
Yeah, that was just for y'all to look at
Okay.
what
How's our
Arkansas's recommendation for. And now it kind of put things in perspective of why we had problems with some of our stuff. Yeah. So, page 11. This is regarding the approval and disapproval. This statement was in there before, it's nothing new, but on A, the planning commission shall be authorized to approve or disapprove. Should the planning commission deny a PUD application, an appeal may be filed with the Centerton City Council. And then there was question on, should we put in there what they can do, and I figure that's up to Brian to give them an instruction on telling them what they can do. Absolutely.
Well, a big stuff.
Procedure, yeah. I think so.
Everything else we went through and we didn't have.
We rewrote a section on page 13. On C,
Oh, you're looking at concept plan?
oh, that is, well, there, B was done. Oh, was the end of B was, okay. But this seems like it's run on instead of. Okay, the certified mailing. One thing that we have found with certified mailing, we used to always have the return receipt cards. People, we kind of talked about this. People don't go to the post office anymore to go pick it up. They would we are able to track them on the USPS website, so we can just get a report, key in the number, and it will tell you, track it for you. So we have found that gets a much better. It's those notifications out there better. So at the end of this paragraph, I'm just gonna kind of start midway. The applicant shall mail a copy of the signed notice of public hearing with a concept map and narrative provided by certified mail to everyone on the certified mailing list at least 15 days in advance of the public hearing to be conducted by the planning commission. And I'm thinking that may be a little run on in too many things, so I may split that sentence a little bit. Applicant shall provide the city with a signed affidavit of notification. And that is a form that they give to us that states that they have complied with these requirements and have mailed those notices. And they will bring that in along with all of the original certified mailing receipts with associated name and addresses. And then the USPS tracking report that I was mentioning for the certified mailing shall be provided to the city at least 7 days prior to the public hearing date. That way we can look at that, we can see where they are. Sometimes it's not enough time to, but we keep, a lot of them will have been delivered. So we'll run another one at the end, but so that was the only thing we kind of reworded and changed that. We had part of it last time, but
Mhm.
we just did some rewording. If you're all good with that. That was the end of the changes as far as, I mean, yeah, from the last time.
So shall we open it up to? for any questions? I would entertain a motion to open a public hearing for Title 14.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second. Oh, wow.
Motion, you give it to whoever you want, Samantha. It's your choice on that one. Is anyone opposed?
Lock it down.
We're now open to the public for anyone that wishes to speak, have questions or comments in regards to the proposed changes for Title 14, Section 14.04.12, Planned Unit Development Code changes. Is there anyone that wishes to speak or have any questions or comments?
I think we're good.
Sure.
Let's say this whole time.
Yeah, we didn't want to be rude and get up and leave, so.
It's second call for anyone that wishes to speak. And third and final call.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there anyone opposed? All right. You need do you need to clean this up and bring it back for us to make a motion, or can we make the motion to send it to the council with the?
Do that. You can make
This
whatever you feel comfortable with.
this is Joey. I'll make a motion to, or I'll make a motion that we recommend the Title 14 PUD code changes with the few revisions that we outlined tonight to the council.
Second.
Motion and a second. Technically, Samantha is a public hearing. If you will do a roll call for me, please.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Devin Murphy.
Yes.
Brandon Swoboda,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Don Sessoms,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
Tony Davis,
Yes.
and Jeff Safer.
Yes. Thank you guys for all the work on that. I think it's a great step actually. And we'll get that going forward still. Thank you.
Still hanging on.
The next one, is that discussion or is it an introduction? Like
It's an
how,
introduction, but I would like for us to, there's only a couple of things that have changed. Since you all saw this, you all had actually approved it to go to council. The ordinance just never got written, and so it did not go. So I just want to take it back to.
Give me one second then. Did y'all need discussion tonight or did you want to talk or just listening?
Oh, we're just listening. We were interested on this, so.
All right, we're about to have more discussion, so. All right, other business is the reintroduction of the draft 14.09 for communications and small cell towers code.
Okay, this first came about when all the cell towers started coming around. And we just have a conditional use, but we didn't have any real guidelines to go by with these cell towers. And then they come out. The big thing that pushed this was the small cells. And Eric, if you go to the exhibit page 26. Yeah. 26 and 27. Go to 20. Well, you can see, if you look at these buildings, they're hard to see. So, but they will be on the chimney. At the top of those chimneys. There's one at the top. There, scroll down. There's one like on the side of a building. I think that one. See the yellow thing on the side to the right, in the top? Those are small cells. Go to the next page, and these, the ones on the next page are more common of what I've seen in the cities. And if y'all go to the cities, if you look around, a lot of times on the stoplights or something, you'll see these on top. So you might zoom in like at the top up there. That one's kind of ugly, but scroll up like the light, no, up. There you go. Something, you'll see those around. So it's kind of limiting where they can put these so that they're not just right on a, in the path of something and what they look like.
They have
So-
regulations, they don't end up a ugly stick.
Yeah. So I don't, do we want to go through all of this again?
We already hashed it out once, right?
Yes. You
Did you
did.
change anything?
I did, but except for, I just want to verify some of these.
This was before you, that was.
I mean, you're welcome to put this under your pillow.
That's a.
Copies and I had.
Oh, what's her name?
Juliet.
Yeah, Juliet did.
Yeah.
Like.
The cacti version.
Yep.
Okay, if you go to page 21, well, okay, calendar day, I just wanted to verify. When we have day, that it means calendar days, when we say they have so many days to do something. Because. And I think it should state, unless expressly stated that. If we want something other than calendar days, then we need to put it in the code that it is business days. Otherwise, if they say so many days, it's going to be calendar days. So if we go to page 21. This is the review procedure. And this is how fast these applications need to be processed. And it says on a non-discriminatory basis, within 60 days of receipt of an application for the co-location of a small wireless facility. And 90 days for an application to install, modify, or replace a pole in which a small wireless facility will be co-located. What I found that with the ones that are being replaced, or co-located, the structure and everything's already there, the location's established. So it's not so difficult. We don't have public works or utilities here.
They're not like.
So that would be one thing that I want to verify with them, that because they handle those utility permits. So those would be the things that I would, at the public hearing, they might possibly change. I think that it's still probably a good time frame. But
Process me.
that they would be submitted and approved
You'd
to
have.
allow them to start.
Right, but what,
Set a public hearing, have a public hearing,
No, there's no public hearings on these. These are,
place their conditional use.
They had been.
They were before.
they were before.
This is, we're
These-
trying to state code, so they don't have to be conditional uses anymore.
These are procedure, right? These set procedures so that if they follow these, then they're allowed.
what happens if they don't follow? And that you have to get revisions. Does the time stop and then starts again once you get it?
Process could be denied. If it doesn't
Could-
follow.
Paragraph 5 says the time could be told on notification of incompleteness.
And it starts over.
Kind of like with the fast track bill.
Yes.
I don't think that says it would start over, but I think it would stop until they.
If the application is incomplete.
Oh, I didn't read the list of
it.
I'm looking at.
Well, we read the whole paragraph.
It says it's recent.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay.
um,
Then why do you need to say it's told upon?
Yeah, that's it.
Notification of incompleteness. That's,
I think it's explaining what,
to me, that makes it seem like your timer doesn't ever start over.
no,
Yeah, that's
it's specifically
inconsistent.
says that it's reset.
Well, no, but the sentence before it says you're gonna toll their their days based on the notification of incomplete things.
Okay. Okay,
I think you could just take out the first sentence.
take out the first sentence.
Well, you could remove, but may be told upon notification of incompleteness.
But, okay, but if the application is incomplete, okay, we'll do that. That's not.
Yeah. I think you gotta leave the first part, though, that says the time frame for reviewing shall commence when the application is submitted, period. If the application is incomplete, the time frame is reset when the missing information is provided.
And if you all would rather have, time to review this and at the next meeting, bring any comment and then set a public hearing.
I don't think there's a lot going on here.
I think we hashed it out several times.
Okay. So that's basically it. I kind of expanded these pictures. They were they were even smaller than this.
I see the landscaping on the bottom and I appreciate that, but what happened with the one over here on Town View? I know it.
Landscape.
There was supposed to be landscaping and there was zero landscaping. I know because it was a big deal.
Yeah, they were gonna put the,
And then they got away with it. How did that?
Cows ate it.
Yeah, no, they don't eat pine trees.
No, like legit, you went out there and you saw where the cows had eaten it. So I remember going out there and the cow destroyed half of that.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Was there not a maintenance? Is there not a maintenance guarantee?
Well,
I remember going out there the one time and.
there's there's a smaller fence around it?
All the plants were on the outside of the 8-foot fence.
Oh, well, that makes good
Sounds
sense.
like they're something on the inside.
So I remember that was finished not long after I started.
yeah, typically they do put the landscaping on the outside if there's landscape. It's really hard to screen. The best luck we've had is doing opaque screening. Like with the, but there's.
My cell phone service still stinks in my house. So
Green landscape.
This is a
I
double.
don't have AT&T.
So the cows really did eat it.
Yes.
So
It's hard to keep.
you need us to
I don't think there was a lot of it.
make a recommendation.
Either need to set a public hearing or bring it back to the next meeting with, so that you can all discuss any changes that you might.
We didn't have a public hearing.
All at the same time, right?
We didn't have a public hearing when we did it last time.
We did, but it's been a year and a half ago, so I would like.
So
Or, this is my,
I think you need to, it's just one of those things, yeah.
I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing for 8:15 meeting.
Is that enough time?
Yes, we haven't had, notices have to go out next week for 8:15.
Cool.
they have to be out by 1.
Is a week and a half. Okay, so 8:15.
Frank couldn't do that.
Motion? Yes, please.
Make a motion to set this for public hearing for 8:15.
Joey, a second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you. Did y'all have questions or comments on this one, or you just wanted to know?
No, you guys are good. Sorry.
I want a copy. You're welcome to put it under your pillow, absorb it, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, this is our first, so we're just learning.
Well, welcome.
Been here.
So we also have this,
What's that?
we also have this. Is it just a reference or?
Well, with the planning report that we emailed out, this is another report that we do. Well, at least twice a year, I thought quarterly.
This one's a half.
This one's the half. We do another one similar, that's quarterly. But this we send to the Arkansas Economic Development Department. And at first, for a long time, they've just been getting subdivisions and are like, now that we're getting multifamily and duplexes and so forth, you really don't have the whole picture. So this was put together And Kayla just updated it last week. Whatever. It says 2-3 at the top. That's not the date. It was last. So this is just to give y'all a
So,
snapshot of how many lots are out there that are in preliminary that we're working with.
so I have a question in regards to that then. So based on what Malcolm said, the preliminary would technically have to wait even if we approve them? Is that the way I
So
understood
they
it?
can't go, they can't have access to sewer service until Malcolm's projects are completed. So they can go through the process, they can even be constructed.
They just can't,
There's a potential that they could sit there finished.
which they don't want to do.
They'll tap in.
No, they can't do construction because they have to have ADH approval before construction, and they're not getting ADH approval, so.
But the understanding was that after they get the comments approved, that ADH would release them to start construction, but not tap in, right?
At the water and sewer meeting this morning, ESI stated that they plan to submit the plans today. Then they expect to get a response back from ADH within 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Then if they are released on the projects, then they will get them out to bid. They're all fairly small. So they hope to have them complete by the end of the year. We had a meeting with 4 different developers the other day. So they are aware that their projects may be released, but they would not be able to connect to water and sewer. Therefore, they would not get C of Os on any construction that they built. If we final.
Well, would you final it?
I know, and well, that was one of my questions. Wait a minute, what are we gonna do about finally?
Yeah.
We can final, Malcolm was like, well, we can final. And the lots, they can start building, but they wouldn't be able to get a C of O. But hopefully ADH and everything will be approved.
We should final it and we just should not set a water meter
Right.
until that should be your hold off.
And that's what was decided in the meeting and discussed. And then the other part of that is that right now ADH is kind of saying you need all the repairs done. But we're kind of hoping that if we get, or I say repairs, but improvements. If we get a certain area where it would release that. Where it wouldn't bottleneck, then possibly they might release that area. So we'll do that as it comes about.
Just so y'all know, based on the census data, the current stuff, the proposed units that you have. Equals like 15,000 and some change for people.
Wow.
Oh, you better buy another fire truck.
And I will also, Bob Anderson asked for this morning too. I told him that we had this, and so I'll be sending it.
That's crazy.
So then they can use it in their future. plan.
Or it's a landscape. Never seen that.
When's the second firehouse gonna be done?
Question, where. I mean, they're.
Yeah.
And I'll try to get a next meeting at least, or in the Dropbox, we'll start putting them in there. The reports from the other departments, because I know that it's hard to know what's going on with the parks and the streets and.
Thank y'all for setting up Malcolm to come tonight. Any update on landscape ordinance?
Yes. We went through all the review. We're just gonna get the final changes and then we'll be presenting that, so. We'll be coming to you soon. I may just give you a draft copy.
Same here, Joey, you should hear it.
We'll save everybody time.
There you
It
go.
was like an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll plan on doing that.
Maybe.
We get the final, just present it.
9 days. Yeah, I got 9 days until we have a baby. I might have some.
Might need it at the hospital. You're waiting to read.
Hmm.
Give him something to read at the hospital. All right. Anything else?
I'm
Alright.
sure there is, but
Um,
the training, APAC training. We send out the notices. If anyone can attend, they're so good. The next one coming up is a really good one. I can't remember what it is. I think it's like
No, it's the conditional
various
use one, right?
additional use variances and
Hmm.
so.
Or
If
half.
anyone is interested, the city will pay for it. It's online. The last meeting, Diane was the trainer. You could have listened.
I liked it.
Man, I'd be throwing darts. Oh, it's online.
So,
Congratulations.
I
You
can't
guys-
see anybody.
Congratulations to you two. You guys passed like a big thing, right?
Yeah.
We're planning, so.
We got
Congratulations.
it done.
yeah.
All right.
Tell you what, I fit that in.
Next planning meeting is the first. Again, if you can't be here, let us know. Their council meeting is 8/8, so I'll see you before then. There's nothing else. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second.
There.
Anyone opposed?
Delayed. That's gonna be iffy on me.